To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Harper Lee wrote To Kill a Mockingbird in the 1960s with the purpose of showing the audience moral values and the difference between right and wrong. This is explored while highlighting the issue of prejudice against race in society, and especially in the cruel prejudicial system. To Kill a Mockingbird is set in the small rural town of Macomb, Alabama during the 1930s. The connection of the time and storyline can be made to the Scottsboro boys' trial in the 1930s, where a group of black teenagers were arrested for the rape of a white woman. This story was large news around America at the time and brought to light the accusations like this happened against black people often. By setting the novel at the same time as this event, Harper Lee would have given people an event that they could remember and relate to connect the story of Tom Robinson to real-life happenings. The novel To Kill a Mockingbird was written and published in the 1960s. To understand what message Harper Lee was trying to deliver to people, you must understand what was happening in the world at the time. The 1960s was a host to major civil rights movements around the world and in America. People were questioning the prejudice in the American system against people of different race and social standings. Changes were being pushed to be made. The novel would have been so important and relatable at this time as it was putting this clear prejudice into the perspective of a child. Through doing this, it was highlighting right and wrong in our world and would have made people in this time think about why things would happen. It may have been just one novel, but writing about what would have been such a taboo subject at the time would have had a large impact on societal views being read by so many. The first theme in the novel, which I analysed a passage about, was innocence. The first passage in To Kill a Mockingbird brings upon the idea that it is a sin to kill a mockingbird, is in chapter 10. This passage is used to help the reader understand Atticus more as Scout explores his differences to others in society and begins to understand the morals which are important to Atticus. This passage and idea links to several different themes, including innocence and conflict between good and evil. The representation of mockingbirds being innocent in this theme is developed through the quote stated by Miss Morty. They don't do one thing but sing their hearts out for us. Using such a strong, slightly exaggerated statement gives the audience a vision of a mockingbird being a beautiful, innocent thing, meaning no harm. By also linking the statement to the idea that they are doing this for us, emphasizes that they are not only not doing harm, but they're actually helping us and giving us something as well. Through further development of events in this novel, this idea of protecting the innocent and vulnerable is further explored. A connection can be made through the overall metaphor of the mockingbird Lee has developed to Tom Robinson, where he is accused of rape. Atticus stands up for him, strengthens the vision that his belief is not harming the innocent, but also develops and emphasizes the fact that Tom Robinson not only means no harm, but also had a positive contribution to the town. This can be seen through his help he was giving Mayella Ewell when accused of rape. This emphasis is revisited after his death, when Mr. Underwood likened his death to the senseless slaughter of songbirds by hunters and children. The statement gets the reader to visualize that someone who was not only innocent, but also to an unfair advantage as he was crippled, has been killed for no meaningful reason. The main statement of this passage is a sin to kill a mockingbird is repeated several times, not only just in the individual passage, but through the whole novel. The word sin is also used in repetition as the idea of sin as well as good and evil is explored. This is explored in the terms of Atticus, as he has such strong morals surrounding not abusing power and the line between right and wrong. Through the novel, Boo Radley is a large example of moral complexity between who are good and evil people. Due to his circumstances, he is presented as some monster, when we later find that he is a good person affected by the evil in the world. He shows this through his gifts and gestures towards children, eventually saving them from Bob Ewell. Near the end of the novel, Scout compares Boo to a mockingbird, stating it would be sort of like shooting a mockingbird by telling a town he killed Bob. She understood this is because it would make him a hero he didn't want to be, demonstrating a vision of good and evil from the eyes of an innocent but understanding child. By basing this passage around the power of guns against the innocent, Harper Lee has used foreshadowing for the events ahead. This idea of an unfair power over animals or people is further explored when Atticus must use it against the mad dog when represented using the gun to stop the evil in town, which is also prejudice and racism. Guns are also brought up when Tom is shot in the jail, but this is a representation of the innocent being killed by the evil in life. The mockingbird was killed. During the 1960s, when Harper Lee novel was released, America was in the middle of the civil rights movement. This had a huge connection to the themes of innocent and good and evil. This is because so much of the movement surrounded the idea that people who were innocent in some areas were being hugely disadvantaged by society. By Harper Lee spreading this idea that it doesn't always seem how it is, and that people who are innocent are having such huge disadvantages, it would have also presented a powerful different perspective to people surrounding what innocence means rather than where you came from or race. Emphasizing the theme of good and evil would have also had a large impact in the movement during the 1960s, as people were battling to prove that some who were seen as evil were good and should have the same rights as everyone else. This novel, from the perspective of Scout, is an exploration of different people's rights in different situations throughout it. I believe these themes are still applicable today as people around the world are still battling for rights and systems still advantage certain groups of people. An example of the constant battle for rights is the Black Lives Matter movement, where 40 years later people of different race are still being disadvantaged, especially in the legal system. To Kill a Mockingbird is still relevant due to the messages it has surrounding innocent people being disadvantaged. To Kill a Mockingbird also highlights the idea of abuse of power against the good, which is still happening in countries. Recent events in Afghanistan prove how dangerous this power can be in the hands of the wrong people, which connects to so many of the morals shown in the novel. This abuse of power is even occurring in countries like Australia, as people in different economic groups are treated differently in situations where they should be equals, such as in court. This connects back To Kill a Mockingbird with difference in rights and powers depending on who the people are and who they associate with. The passage and idea of it being a sin to kill a mockingbird is extremely powerful throughout the novel, with themes of innocence as well as good as evil will always be necessary to apply to any circumstances in life. The second passage from To Kill a Mockingbird that I have analysed relates to the theme of ambition and how it was seen throughout the novel. The last passage of chapter 11 is one of an interaction between Atticus and Jem about Mrs. Dubose after she died. After a month of Jem reading to Miss Dubose, mainly against his will, Atticus comes home bearing the news that she has passed away. After sharing this, he explains to Jem her battle she'd been going through with a morphine addiction, talking of her character as if she was the best lady in town. This aggravated Jem, as their family had been so often verbally abused by the old lady, and he couldn't see why Atticus was adamant to get him to see that she was a brave, strong woman. At the beginning of this passage, the statement "a lady" was repeated several times and was used with the imagery of Jem's face becoming scarlet at the statement. This expresses Jem's belief on the clash with the expression with her personality as he continues questioning that after everything she's said to them, why Atticus would give her the respectful acknowledgement. The complexity of Miss Dubose's personality is also presented through the fact that at the start of the novel she's shown to be a horrible woman in which there was nothing to like about her. Harper Lee has then contradicted that in this paragraph by painting an image that she was suffering and had strong personality traits about her. This can represent Atticus's moral views on finding the good in people and giving everyone a chance considering their circumstances. He later does this when explaining a situation Mayella was in and trying to understand her even though she was going against his beliefs. The metaphor courage is a man with a gun is a strong point and technique used in this passage. It highlights what Atticus does not believe and his stance on wanting to pass the idea to his children that it does not show courage. That passage this passage is developed around the idea that what courage is, an ambition that feels it and is fueled by it. The metaphor, followed by another of Atticus, uses the statement, "You're licked," portraying the idea that being hopeless before you begin something. The passage demonstrates Atticus teaching Jem an important life lesson on what courage is. The metaphors highlight that Miss Dubose had courage in a way that she fought through her addiction, even though she was going to die. Atticus' quote, "You rarely win, but sometimes you do," highlights the importance of seeing things through and having ambition to do something. It highlights that ambition and mental strength overpowers men with guns or superficial power any day. The idea of ambition and seeing something through, even if you are licked, has strong connection to the Tom Robinson court case. It is clearly portrayed from the start of the novel that there is hardly any hope for winning the case, but Atticus goes through with it and proves the strength in ambition, as the audience saw it was the right thing for him to go through with it, even if he lost it in the end. In the last of Atticus' statement, he said that she was the bravest person I ever knew, describing Mrs. Dubose. This highlights Atticus's trait of looking for the good in people. The statement comes across generally ironic due to the way Mrs. Dubose has been presented through the book, showing Atticus's respect to everyone, no matter who they were, and showing forgiveness. This passage also explores so many different themes and ideas which could have been related to society in the 1960s when the novel was published. These include ambition, as mentioned, as well as the idea of looking for the good in people, which is further discovered in the next few passages I will be analysing. Ambition would have been so relatable at the time due to changes in the world. As the civil rights movement continued to grow and be fought for, so many Americans would have needed to rely on ambition to try and reach the goal they were aiming for. The idea of "you rarely win, but sometimes you do" gets the audience to believe and understand that you can't get anything without ambition and having the courage to give it a go. This push of belief that with courage you can achieve things would have been so closely related to the actions of people who were making unfair rights in America and around the world, motivating them to give it to them with the chance that they could win. Ambition is still such an important trait to have in the world now. As people continue to fight and protest for rights and changes surrounding so many different things around the world, it is ambition which brings change. By highlighting the importance of ambition and courage in To Kill a Mockingbird, it gives such an important message of fighting for what you want, which can be applied to any circumstances, no matter what. In this world, it is people who have ambition who thrive, which can be mirrored by Atticus's success in the community of Maycomb, even if he didn't win the Tom Robinson case. This passage portrays such a strong message on the importance of ambition and courage, which is further displayed throughout the rest of the novel. It also displays an example of trying to understand people and why they do things, which is an important message through the novel as well. The third and fourth passages that I've analysed from To Kill a Mockingbird are based around the theme of understanding moral complexity through sympathy. In Chapter 3, the passage I have chosen displays such an important message, which is emphasised through the whole book, understanding people by looking at things from their point of view. This is first brought up in the passage after Scout's first day of school. Walter Cunningham comes home with them to eat, drowning his food in syrup, which infuriates Scout, while she's mad at her teacher for teaching wrong. During this passage, Atticus uses the statements "all kinds of folks." This statement is used as a generalization for all people, emphasizing that they are all just that, people. The statement connects to the deep meaning of this book and of how different people are treated and interacted within society. Using the word folks displays Atticus's view that all people should be respected the same, no matter what their race or where they came from. The technique is used to emphasize the idea to Scout and the audience that all these people are just folks, the same as everyone else. The main quote and metaphor from this passage is, "You never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view, until you climb into his skin and walk around in it." The idea of putting yourself in somebody else's shoes is repeated several more times throughout the novel, as well as in its end passage, at the end of this passage. This quote is so important to the novel as it links to the theme of moral complexity and helps the audience further understand Atticus's core moral principles as a person. Using this metaphor paints a clear image of understanding someone literally from their point of view. This reflection of Atticus enables us to understand his way of looking for the good in everyone throughout the novel. It also reflects upon Atticus's sympathy to mockingbirds as he tries to understand them before making a judgment. Whilst Atticus is discussing why people did things to Scout, the repetition of the word learned is used. This emphasizes the relationship Atticus has with his children as he takes situations and gives them a message of knowledge and understanding to take from them. Through Scout's discussion with Atticus, she's been taught to live with sympathy and therefore standing towards others, at the same time as understanding Miss Caroline and Walter Cunningham's perspectives on the situations that had occurred that day. This knowledge Scout has gained is later seen as she learns to have sympathy towards others in situations. This is displayed nearing the end of the novel, where Scout walks Boo home on the night of the attack, understanding the situation from his point of view and giving him the sympathy she has learnt to give. The idea of sympathy and moral complexity is further explored in the last passage of the novel. The passage is written of a discussion between Atticus and Scout over a novel she has been reading. Scout explained to Atticus that the people were going after someone, trying to catch him, but when they finally saw him, he hadn't done anything they accused him of. He was real nice. The novel's description mirrors the storyline of To Kill a Mockingbird in so many ways. Through using this as a last passage, it conveys to the audience the idea that Scout now understood what had happened through the novel and was looking at the situation using the morals Atticus had taught her. As I have highlighted in the passage, Harper Lee used clear description of Atticus's movements in this passage. The descriptions emphasize precise, careful movements which were caring towards Scout, which display his traits and relationship with his children. The care shown in his movement whilst pulling up the cover of Scout's bed is used to show Atticus as the caring, understanding person he is, which emphasizes his moral traits which have been explored through the novel. The broad metaphor, when you finally see them, is used in this passage to emphasize the point of understanding someone, which is written as seeing them, because when you truly understand someone, you see them for who they are. This metaphor links the passage back to the idea of sympathy, as it displays true understanding how to use it, Scout truly understanding how to use it, and understanding people better. The passage emphasizes the moral value of Atticus living with sympathy and understanding. The overall passage connects this, showing that sympathy can stand stronger than any evil and bring good and peace to the world. The book's last few words are "in the morning." This phase emphasizes the continuation of life after the circumstances that had just occurred. This can be linked to Scout's continuing journey of growth of knowledge as she continues to learn new life lessons and develops more sympathy and understanding towards people and life. The last two passages I have analysed connect to the theme of moral complexity and the effects that sympathy has on understanding why people do things and who people really are. This theme can be connected to so many different circumstances at any time in history or now. During the 1960s, sympathy would have been such an important trait to have, as people were sharing their stories of inequality and loss of rights. To really understand why this was important and how it affected people, sympathy would have been needed. As displayed in the book, to understand people, you have to use sympathy, and if you can do it to help eradicate prejudice and evil, which was exactly what the civil rights movement was trying to achieve in 1960s. I believe the understanding surrounding sympathy in To Kill a Mockingbird is still necessary in so many situations in modern society. No situation can be changed without sympathy, as to make a change, you must understand why things are like they are and look at why people are doing things. Sympathy can help us get on a view on what situations are like for other people, which therefore can lead to change and understanding, because you cannot get that without understanding what is wrong and what must be changed. In current times, people are so independent and get caught up on their own life that loss of sympathy can lead to isolation and people getting left behind. The novel To Kill a Mockingbird reminds us to look at situations from other people's point of views and brings back that connection that can get lost in modern society. To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee is a complex novel which demonstrates several different messages and themes necessary for life in the 1960s, which can still be connected to modern life today. Through Scout's journey, learning life lessons of Atticus through the situations that they must face, the audience is presented these messages from the eyes of innocence, putting situations through a view that most wouldn't see the world from. This develops strong awakening messages for the reader as they follow a story of prejudice and moral complexity in the 1930s at Macomb, Alabama. Thank you for listening.